This episode of Sportish is sponsored by the Active Industry First Start Traineeship program, funded by the Queensland Government. Hello and welcome to Sportish, where we look at life through the lens of sport. My name is Georgie Trickett.
And I'm Libby Trickett.
This is essentially like a sporting Christmas time of year for us both.
We love this time of year.
You've been on the cycling bandwagon for about a month already, whereas I typically jump in over the June, July holidays.
You love a bandwagon when it comes to cycling.
I do.
It's usually me that's jumping on the bandwagon.
Not this time.
You're a consistent supporter of sports, whereas I'm just like a bandwagon junkie.
Well, you go deep, which is very much your brain.
Narrow and deep.
We are, of course, talking about Le Tour de France.
And Tour de France Femmes.
Avec Swift.
Avec Swift.
That is the men's and women's cycling that's going all through Europe as we speak.
It is epic.
It definitely becomes our personality. It's an afternoon ritual for my family on school holidays. Is it me trying to achieve some quiet time in my households? Yes. But do I also sit down and watch it with the children? And then do we talk about the performances of all the athletes? Also, yes.
Also, yes. Whereas I don't watch it with my children. It is an exclusively me enjoyment.
To make sure we understand more and that we can equip all our listeners with the information that we need, we have asked a very special guest into the studio today.
Bridie O'Donnell is actually Dr Bridie O'Donnell, if you don't mind. She is an accomplished medical doctor, public servant, elite athlete, author, sports broadcaster, a former competitive cyclist who represented Australia at 3 UCI Road World Championships. So Bridie made history in 2020 as the first woman to join SBS Cycling as a commentator for the Tour de France. She is an absolute force, and it's such a pleasure to have her in the studio with us. Welcome, Bridie.
Before we dive in to the detail of everything cycling, some of our listeners will be super fans, like Libby here.
Big fan.
And others will be more tuning in for the highlights, for the short packages, picking things up in the media.
Mini stages.
Where does this tour sit in the cycling universe?
The Tour is the gold medal, and then there's daylight to every other podium finisher. The majority of people in the world have heard of the Tour de France, which is pretty amazing. It's the biggest annual sporting event in the world, and it's the second biggest event in the world after the FIFA World Cup, which happens every 4 years. They say that somewhere between 1.5 and 2 billion people are tuning in to the Tour de France all over the world, and that has been also helped by the man whose name we shall not name, the American. That expanded the viewership in the United States. And now we've seen riders from Eritrea, South Africa, so therefore it's the expansion into Africa as a continent. And Rwanda had the World Championships last year. So it is pretty extraordinary that so many people know what it is. But to your point, Georgie, somewhere around 40 or 50% of the SBS audience tunes in for the 3-week postcard of France. They don't really care the watts per kilo and the bikes that people ride and the food that they eat. They sometimes send us cranky emails that say, shush up about the bike race and tell me more about the chateau and the wine and the cheese and the terroir and, so which is very cool because it means our audience is extremely diverse. And then some people are hardcore cycling fans.
I think that's what has been so enlightening to me, because the only reason that I got into the tour and into cycling in general, now I'm watching the Giro d'Italia and all of the sort of one-day races and all of these things that I had no idea about, is because of sports documentaries like Unchained, the Tour de France Unchained documentary that was out a couple of years ago. And now I'm obsessed, and I have favorite cyclists and I have favorite teams, and that's how I came kind of across you, because, I absolutely love your commentary. And, now I dream of going on the tour and watching the cycling and then, dabbling in some pastries and having a lot of fun. What is it about cycling that, I don't know, I mean, obviously there's the element and the culture around it, but what is it about cycling that makes people so interested in it?
I think because cycling and the race are kind of a very powerful metaphor for life, because most of the time you're not winning in cycling. Most of the time you're trying hard. It's in the effort, sort of this gallant effort and suffering, which is a word that gets used a lot in cycling, to yield no victory. And there is great honour in that. There's also honour in being a domestique, which was the role I had, and you see it every day, and we can talk more about the roles of people in the team. But lots of people are invisible and slaving away, because domestique kind of means slave, for their race leader. So you can't win a Tour de France. Cadel Evans didn't win his Tour de France without 8 men that literally gave him bottles when he needed it, pushed him while he was peeing, gave him a jacket when it was raining. And you don't know any of their names. You just know that Cadel won in 2011. And yet the families and friends recognise that effort. And so most of us in our daily corporate lives, we're kind of domestiques. We're working for the CEO or the minister or the boss or whatever. And we hope that maybe they acknowledge our work, and great bosses and leaders do. Sometimes shitty bosses and leaders don't take all the credit, and that happens in cycling too. So I think people see themselves in the event. I also think the beauty is in the terrain, that you are genuinely tackling weather, altitude, dangerous descents. You crash, you have to get back on if you want to stay in the event. You can't go sit on the bench like in a netball game or a football game. You have to keep going while you are bleeding. And then at the finish line, they go, do you think you could go on again tomorrow? And you go, yeah, I hope so. I think so. So it is a lot about pain. It's about balancing personal ambition with team ambition. And it's a lot about pride. The people on the finish line, and when people win a stage of the tour, the men and women, they're generally sobbing because A, they're exhausted, B, it's a dream realised, and C, their family and friends and people who love them are like just so proud to have witnessed greatness. So it's a very emotional and special thing to be part of.
Well, if that isn't just life through the lens of elite sport, I don't know what is.
Oh, exactly. I think it's quite remarkable to try and compare the Tour de France to anything else that exists in the sporting context. So to give people an idea, or to put it in another sports, context, is it like running a marathon every day? Is it like swimming an ocean swim every day? How does it compare?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and this will be maybe more relevant for you, Libby, but it'd be like having a 21-day swimming tournament at the Olympics. And all we were focused on is the swimming at the Olympics, and you have to compete every single day in every discipline. You're not going to win every day. That's okay. Someone will win every day, but your time is counted every day. And you might not ever win any of those 21 races over those 21 days. But if you keep coming third, fourth, second, fifth, whatever, you're the most consistent. At the end of the 21 days, Libby, you may be the winner of the tournament. But in between, there are all these other people that are just individually thinking, I just want to win the 100-metre breaststroke on day 5, or I just want to win the 400-metre freestyle on day 9. So there are competitions within those 21 days. And at the end of the men's race, which is 21 stages or 9 stages for the women, there is an ultimate winner. And physiologically, they are usually an insanely good climber who can time trial so they can sustain a good amount of power. So that, yes, they are like a marathon runner or an ocean swimmer in their physiology. No big, heavy sprinter type or domestique type has ever won the tour, because there's just too many mountains, and the watts that you have to generate, the power per kilo that you weigh, is so specifically geared towards a person who is light, lean, probably eating disordered, trains way too much, has no social life, usually has a wife whose life runs around supporting and enabling them, and is insanely committed to preparation for that event.
Because I have my favourites now.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
we have our favourites.
Absolutely.
So for me, my absolute all-time favourite is Wout van Aert.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
But he is a vibe. He is that classic, well, I'm saying this as like I sound like an expert. I am not an expert, just to be very clear. So please put me in my place, Bridie. Wout is that kind of classic domestique, just will absolutely tear shreds off himself in the pursuit of Jonas Vingegaard, who he rides for, but then has the occasional sort of stage win. Is very good at those kind of one-day races, those races that go on cobblestones, and because that was his kind of background, from my understanding. What is it about a domestique that kind of puts you there, as opposed to like a Jonas Vingegaard or a Tadej Pogačar, who are just these iconic sort of GC winning athletes?
Generally, it is about physiology. It's a little bit about what you're born with. You then determine basically height and weight you can't do much about, or muscle mass that you've developed. So if you sit those two riders next to each other, Jonas Vingegaard, who's apparently, 5'2", 5'3", and 57 kilos. So it looks like a jockey. And then you've got Wout van Aert, who's probably around 180 centimetres and maybe 70 kilos, really heavy muscle mass in his lower body, very powerful and can sustain a certain amount of power over a certain amount of time. But you refer to his ability in cyclocross. So he's been a cyclocross champion, which is usually a race that's over laps, and it's often over mud, sand, snow. It's a winter sport in Europe and it's huge. And most people, the fans, are just drinking beer and cheering loudly in Belgium, while these riders are suffering through technical mishap. So he's not just physically capable of working hard at the front of the bunch and protecting someone or bringing Jonas back up if he's crashed. He also has insanely good bike handling skills. So Wout very rarely crashes. And when he has had some terrible crashes in the last few years, they've been dramatic and at high speed. But one of the things that we don't get a sense of until you've been on a bike is that helicopter shot that you see of the peloton that makes it look like a big swarm of fish. It all looks very tranquil. Like there's just colour and movement and people riding around. But when you're in it, imagine riding at 45, 50k an hour. People are bumping into your elbows and they're bigger than you, stronger than you. And you think, I could crash here. And you see a crash and then there's this whole kind of accordion effect of people crashing behind you because you're so close together. And the guys and the women that can do this so well are they've grown up racing on bikes like Wout did, and they can move through it and make it just look so easy. Marianne Vos in the women's peloton is the same sort of rider. She can you just think, wow, how come she's always in the right place at the right time? So the bike IQ that he has, the physiology that he has, the mental discipline of kind of that suffering, doesn't matter if the sideways rain or the wind or whatever. That said, there is an immense pressure that comes with being a GC or a general classification contender because you might get the leader's jersey halfway through the race, as we're seeing in the women's Giro. Anna van der Breggen, the Dutch woman, has got that jersey. There's responsibility then. Your team is responsible to bring back a break. Your team is responsible to do more work. People will come and point to you and say, hey, why aren't you chasing this back? And also you're there. And I've only worn a yellow leader's jersey once in a tour in Canada. It's really stressful. Suddenly you put the jersey on in the morning. I mean, maybe Tade and Jonas don't think about it now and they think, shit, I don't want to lose this jersey. What if I stuff it up? What if I miss the break? What if my legs feel terrible? Yeah, so it's huge pressure. And not everyone is suited to that. And I'm not suggesting Wout can't lead a race, but from my perspective, because I'm that sort of rider, not the champion that Wout is, it's actually mentally a lot easier to just fucking work hard. Than sit back and wait and wait and wait. Like I couldn't be a sprinter either and literally wait 5 hours to accelerate over 20 seconds at the end of the race. Like that's insane mental resilience. I mean, they've got no brains, the sprinters. We all know but so you're not thinking about anything.
Bridie, I want to talk about what it's like to be in the commentary box when you're watching that peloton glide along and it looks beautiful and all of a sudden you start to see, and I love the term, the road furniture or the street furniture appear.
Yes.
How does the tension go in the commentary box when that starts to come into shot?
So road furniture for your listeners is when we refer to, traffic calming, anything that's actually designed to be better for a city to reduce car traffic and be better for pedestrians and other road users is actually hazardous for bike riders in a race. Because actually the best and safest roads for racing are just big wide open roads, but they're not that interesting. And so race organisers will always say, great, let's come into Avignon or let's come into Lyon or Dijon or wherever, some beautiful town. And as they do, there's traffic calming, there's speed humps, there's corners, and you can't have the same 25 guys across the road with, 13 deep the entire way. So it narrows and it widens. And you can see us in the booth, we all do this or we do that. We're all trying to make ourselves more narrow. We're thinking, oh no. And Simon Gerrans, my colleague who's raced the Tour de France, more than 10 times, he's very calm. He's someone who can remember back to what those experiences were like. But you're constantly slightly looking up the road because we see the same footage as you do at home. We don't get any forewarning of the commentary. We're literally looking at the same pictures that you are and then talking to the pictures. So that's the other art of commentary that I always try every day to master and be better at is make sure you're talking to what the people at home can see. You can project and speculate about what might be going through a rider's mind, but don't go off on random tangents the way you might if you were, a cricket commentator, when people are looking at something that's action-based, like the finish. If they're in the mountains and it's a long climb and there's stunning scenery, allow the audience to observe and absorb that beautiful scenery. And we've often been told to shush up for a while so people can just look at the mountains. Those sprint finishes are tense. Matthew Keenan, my colleague, has been doing this for 20 years, and he is definitely the one who wants to sort of really call the finish of the race. It sometimes sounds like a thoroughbred horse race. And we try and balance how we kind of jump in and out of identifying riders, because you literally are just trying to pick out, oh, here he is, and there's Mads Pedersen, and oh my goodness, Mark Cavendish has crashed, and now this rider's coming through. So you have to be really quick on rider ID. You have to make sure the audience is being brought along with you, and then you have to ideally call the winner correctly across the line, which is actually harder than it looks and sounds.
I think that is something that, as someone who kind of works in sports media, have just so admired about you in that role. Just the name ID and the athlete ID during the race, like you're working that out with numbers, and I imagine that you have some recollection of who is who, but then I'm sure you would have it on pages. And then not only that, but particularly with the Tour de France, like the names are spectacular in terms of like having to pronounce names and you wanting to do that correctly, obviously, because they have family and friends at home who would be thrilled to hear them mentioned on the television. How on earth do you prepare for 3 weeks on the road? And, you know, that's not even mentioning the Tour de France Femmes, which comes on the back of the men's. Like, how on earth do you prepare for that sort of marathon of calling?
There is amazing websites and information at your fingertips. So that's a really great resource. We print a start list every day, and we each have 2 A4 pages, and each start list has them in teams. And then what we've done in the lead up is watched the Criterium du Dauphiné, which is kind of like the warm-up race for the Tour de France that a lot of riders do. And it sounds kind of small and silly, but it's really important. Literally identifying what the jerseys look like. A lot of teams change their jersey logos and sponsors and colours. And sometimes you'll have a team like Uno X, which is a Norwegian team that wears red jersey and a yellow stripe. They are literally all 7 men who are 6 foot tall. They look the same. They wear the same glasses. Their socks are the same. So trying to tell the difference when they're front on is like, you'd be like, is that Lars Bjork Andersen or is it Lars Andersen Jung van Andersen with a different R? And so you're going to get it wrong sometimes. And it's really important, and Matt's taught me this, you don't reverse over the dead body in commentary. If you've made a mistake, you just keep going. And then if it's material, if you've made a material mistake and you've got time, you go back and correct and say, sorry, that wasn't Libby Trickett in the break. It's actually her sister Georgie. I got them wrong. She wears different coloured socks, whatever. But it doesn't matter. I mean, that's the one thing that I think I've learned to let go of is we are never going to be perfect. And sometimes people we get a lot of helpful feedback, as you can imagine. But some of the really good feedback, I was being facetious, but some of the great feedback is actually you're pronouncing that Polish name wrong, and someone will literally send us a voice note that says, here's how to say Wlodacek. And you say Wlodacek in the right way instead of butchering the last name. And some commentators' ears are not as good as other commentators' ears, and their pronunciation's never going to be right. I think that's okay. But you're right. We are pronouncing French, Italian, Czech, Slovenian, English, Irish, lots of different names. And we want to make sure we honour the rider and the team. I think the other thing, because there's a couple of these websites where Pro Cycling Stats is an invaluable, it's like a little race Bible. So I can click on the name of a rider and up pops up all their history. So I know this is ruining everything for everyone, but Matt is not Wikipedia, okay? Everyone, we have these resources at our disposal. I mean, his brain is pretty massive. But we'll go, oh yeah, they won the Tour of Flanders in 2021 in a sprint finish. We don't have all of those facts in the back of our minds. We have it, in a way that we can get to it. I think what's more important and what I like to add is, what does this mean? What does it mean now that this person has been dropped? What does it mean that they are up for contract at the end of this year? So they're racing differently. They're kind of racing a little bit maybe more selfishly or a bit more aggressively because they're trying to literally have their name on race radio. So another race director goes, yeah, that Victor Campenaerts, and he's a great example, teammate of Wout van Aert. Victor won that stage near the back end of the Tour de France a couple of years ago when he was out of contract. He sobbed. Remember, he sobbed at the end. He called his wife, who's pregnant. She came to altitude training, had their baby, all this sort of stuff. And you think this was a matter of, would he be unemployed?
Yeah.
And then he wins a stage and he gets picked up by Visma Lisa Bike and his whole life has changed. It's not life and death, but it's, as you know, Libby, and it's come up with this conversation about the enhanced games. People think that the life of a professional athlete is quite glorified and people are financially remunerated well and they live in Monaco and it's wonderful. That's about 0.1% of professional bike riders. The others are literally scratching to try and get a better contract and a better team to set themselves up because they could have a crash next year and have a concussion and be forced to retire and they're 32 and they have 3 children and they have 0 skills and they've never gone to uni and they are Slovenian or Belgian or Dutch, you know. So it is incredibly short and limited time in which a person can make a living, make a name for themselves. So no wonder they're lured by money. No wonder they were lured by doping in the past, in systematic ways. I get that. I don't condone it, but I understand it.
Hey, Libby.
Hey, Georgina.
Have you heard about the Active Industries First Start Traineeship program?
Is that the one where you get $20,000 wage subsidy for not-for-profit clubs and organisations?
Totally. I thought this was just wild and I didn't know that this existed and I can already think of so many clubs that could benefit from this. This is a bit of money that you can use to bring someone on who's not just a volunteer, they're actually an employee of your club to help you get all the things done that you need to get done.
And are they the people who kind of haven't been in work for a while, so it helps them return to work as well?
It can be, or it can just be you converting a volunteer into somebody who can do all the doing.
Because that's the thing, you know, in all of these sorts of organisations, it relies so much on volunteers and people are so busy. And they need to be able to put together these things that help organisations take it to another level.
We want people in clubs to be able to rely on somebody to print out the spreadsheets, to organise the websites so that the people who are volunteering can get out on the court or on the field and do what they do best.
Basically, people can take advantage and all they need to do is submit an application and AQIA can actually help you with that. So head to the website or click the link in the show notes. Take advantage of this incredible opportunity.
We were just talking about pronunciations before, and at the start of this when we were chatting, I was trying to pronounce the Tour de France Femmes avec Swift, and you quite rightly pointed out that it's Femmes. And it's something that we all experience. It opens up the world to us, this international event, and I love that about it. I particularly love this women's event. This was something we dropped into last year as a family. My family have been watching the tour on school holidays every afternoon. We watch the roundup, mini stage, or maybe, if we're feeling, adventurous,
spicy,
maybe a bit longer, to the point where the kids, if they're riding their bikes, my youngest will pretend he's Pogacar as he rides up a hill. And I love that it influences kids in that way. And I love that my girls in particular and my son are seeing women ride. What has it been like to see the expansion of the women's tour, and now that they're going to be racing, as I understand it, and a stage that's on a significant mountain that women haven't actually raced on before?
Yeah. So the Tour de France started for women in 1951. And the first woman to win, I think there was like 7 or 11 women that raced it. The first woman to win it, Millie, she drove a lorry in England. She was born in the Isle of Man, and they sacked her when they found out she was secretly training on her bike to prepare for the Tour de France. Then she won it. Anyway, so it had a few years, and of course you can imagine the barriers to cycling for women in the 50s, and they made them ride the same distances but provided almost no support, etc. Then there was another incarnation of it in the 80s. Then there were some races that I did that were called like the Route de France, which was around 8 stages. Again, no TV coverage, abysmal prize money, and the infrastructure around the race in terms of accommodation, transfers, teams, etc., was so poor that teams understandably just didn't want to go to it because it cost the team money to go. You don't get any coverage in the newspapers or the TV, so there's no reward for the sponsors. And this is part of that professional sport ecosystem that I know you talk about Georgie and Libby and what I'm really interested in. So finally, we get to pandemic period and Zwift, which is an online cycling platform, an amazing way for people to not just train and ride and be fit, but connect and ride with people in other cities and countries. They decided they were going to sponsor not only the very first women's Paris-Roubaix, but then they would sponsor a new iteration of the Tour de France Femmes. And it started in 2022. And in that first season, first year of the new iteration, the stage one was held on the Champs-Élysées on the final day of the men's race. Now, it's always very special for us to arrive in Paris the night before the final stage. We get to wake up in the morning on the final day. We walk along the Champs-Élysées, which is all completely closed off to traffic, to our office, which is, a commentary booth on the most famous boulevard in the world. And I was so emotional, like I will cry again thinking about it. It wasn't just that they were racing, the fact that it was going to be broadcast to the world, because as you know, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And suddenly we are going to see these women, we're going to be saying their names. They're going to be attacking and sprinting and climbing and crying and winning in front of the whole world. And so 2022 was a good year. 23 was a pretty great year. 24 was amazing. Last year was the most moving thing I've ever seen in women's professional cycling, because the winner of the Women's Tour de France was French. And she wasn't just a French woman. She's an Olympic gold medalist in mountain bike. She's a former world champion on the road. She's a very quiet, reserved sort of person who'd taken some time out off the road, come back and said, I want to win the Tour de France. And it was like, that's nice.
Good one.
And
Don't we all?
oh, yeah, exactly. We all want things. I mean, I want to be taller. And so she won the second last stage and was moved into the yellow jersey position. And I remember being in the commentary booth, watching her backstage. They have the podium presentation. They put the jersey on the rider before she goes out onto the stage. And there's the race organiser, a woman, Marion Roux, a French woman who's been a French national champion as well. They were both crying, but it was this very kind of reserved, controlled, can you believe we are here? We are friends. We have been competitors. I'm the race organiser. I am putting this yellow jersey on the back of a French woman, and the French woman is now walking out onto the stage in the yellow jersey. It is the most inspiring, moving, kind of validating feeling, because I mean, I was never at that calibre. I couldn't imagine I would ever have been a Tour de France winner. But I dream of being a domestique for someone like Pauline Ferrand-Prévot. She then won the final stage in yellow, and I remember saying to the executive producer back in Sydney, I want to step out of the booth so I can run down to the side and bang on the barriers like everybody else. Oh my God, I'm going to cry again. It was amazing. Like I don't think the men, my colleagues, understand. They've had 120 years of just being able to see men's greatness every July. And to be now seeing it, calling it, talking about it, analysing it, criticising it, it's just such a privilege.
I mean, I've
gone.
Like, that is everything that, to a much lesser extent, it's not the Tour de France, but everything that Georgie and I wish and hope for women's sport. To have those opportunities on the world's biggest stages, for women to be seen, as these incredible athletes, and the effort and the work that they put into every single day for these opportunities. And I imagine, like, just for you, that feeling, especially coming from being a cyclist and dreaming of those opportunities, to see it. But can I say, what is so beautiful about this, your ability to communicate that? Like, I'm now in tears because you were able to talk so beautifully to that and to describe it. And I just think that is such a powerful thing. And as important as these women that we get to watch and, see and visualize, how hard is it as a woman in media, in sports media specifically, that has been so dominated by men, to kind of carve out your space and be able to commentate not only women's sport, but now men's sport as well?
I think it's still really hard. I'm really interested in this. I'm interested in the representation of women in sports broadcasting, because if we think about where we are right now in Australia, we're having conversations and concerns about ongoing lack of respect for women in community and society, that cases of women and children being murdered by intimate partners is still a very appalling statistic and of regularity in the news. And we know that women in positions of power, when that is normalised, then the world understands that a woman can be making a call on a field. She can be the referee or the umpire. We see when there's a small woman standing on a field talking to two rugby players, that has a very powerful impact. Equally so, I believe, a woman's voice telling you what is happening with a major sporting event, whereas whether it's a FIFA World Cup game, a Socceroos game, an AFL men's game, is very powerful. It sends a message to the audience, men, women, children, that women can be experts, women can know things, they can be critical and complimentary of athletes' performances, and that's really important. At the moment in Australia, women sports broadcasters make up around 7 to 11%, depending on what stats you're looking at. 95% of sports podcasts are hosted by men, as I'm sure you both well know. We hear a lot of men's voices talking about sport. We don't hear anywhere near enough women's voices. And similarly, I've looked at the way that's happening in other countries where women's sport is starting to come a little closer to men's sport. A great example is where we see tens of thousands of people going to Premier League games for women's football in England. Or we see in the WNBA huge salary increases, amazing conversations about performance, people being able to be much more critical of women's athletes. And now for me, I actually think once we've stopped saying, isn't it nice that she gets to play, and we've moved to, that was a poor performance by Caitlin Clark, she should have scored more points, that's when we're getting gender equality in sport, if we're able to say, I expected more of that athlete. And we see amazing commentary of women's sport by women commentators in the US and the UK and a lot of English-speaking countries, but not many women commentating men's sport. And when I started commentating the Tour de France in 2020, there were a few men on the internet that lost their tiny minds. They didn't think I would be qualified, and what would I know about it? And I got a lot of all caps rage, apparently. Now, the good thing is I'm not on Facebook. I don't read that sort of stuff, but there was a lot of get back in the kitchen kind of commentary. I mean, joke was on them. I was actually in my kitchen for a lot of it because we were in lockdown in Melbourne. And look, find a girl who can commentate the tour and cook. That's what I say.
Absolutely.
But people find me annoying. It's because they might be annoyed by something I said. I mean, they're going to be more annoyed by me than any other man that commentates just because of my gender. What I would also say, though, is how high is the bar that, you know, I'm a medical doctor, a former world champion, a person who's been a professional cyclist, a person who can say some reasonably smart things and doesn't have a super annoying voice. And that's the bar now. But men don't have to exceed that bar.
No.
Oh, and have to look really good on TV. Don't be fat. Don't be ugly. Don't be gay. Don't be Aboriginal. Don't be disabled.
Insane.
It is insane at the moment that we are still trying to find ways to allow women space to develop, and not just to develop, but to fail. Let's let some women stuff up and make mistakes and have an enabling and safe environment for them to make the wrong call or say the wrong thing. And their colleagues are like, that's cool, don't worry, and protect them. But the amount of online hate that women commentators receive as well for mistakes they make or just the sound of their voice is terrifying to me. So I want to see that change because I think we need to hear more diverse voices like Daisy Pearce when she commentates the footy. She is so insanely articulate and insightful. But there are still men that say to me, I just don't like how her voice sounds.
Oh my God.
How dare she wear the same outfit 2 days in a row?
Bridie, it is an absolute pleasure to have you in our ears every night of the Tour de France and the Tour de France Femmes. Fum. I'll get it soon. But it's okay to get it wrong.
Yes, that's it. Exactly right.
We love it. We love it. And we also love following you on Instagram. You're one of our favourite follows. You give such good commentary around sport and sporting issues. Your dating life is also exceptional to understand.
It's not exceptional, actually. It's very terrible.
Your honesty about it is refreshing and we thank you for it.
And your commentary. Everything that you do is just so wonderful. One of my favourite follows for sure. Everyone needs to go and follow Bridie.
Bridie O'Donnell, thank you so much for joining us today on Sportish.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Georgie, I love her.
I love her so much.
I don't know if you ever get this. I'm a weirdo like this, but you know, when you just want to be friends with someone.
Oh, immediately. So Bridie just has this energy. And do you know what? It comes through in the broadcast as well.
She's vibrant.
Where you feel like she is directly talking to you. And she's an excellent broadcaster because she can anticipate where the audience's mind is going when something appears on screen. And I so appreciate that because I'll be like, why? And then Bridie will tell us exactly what's happened.
We like storytelling. Like that's one of the things that we so enjoy about sport is that element of storytelling. And even just when she was talking about the Tour de France Femmes and that experience in Paris and her, you know, wanting to kind of belt the barricades with everyone and that energy, and she had tears and I started crying. Like just the power of storytelling that she has in her broadcast is magical. And what a pleasure it was to have her on talking all things cycling.
We're so lucky to have so much expertise available to come and speak to the Sportish audience and share with us everything we need to know about these amazing cycling adventures.
Way more expertise.
So much more expertise than we quite clearly possess.
Thank you so much for listening. We absolutely love having you on this journey, on the journey. I don't know why we've gone on a journey. Maybe it's the cycling journey that we've been talking about. If you would like to like and subscribe, that always helps us go on the charts. Can I just be super competitive for one moment?
Oh my God.
This is Bridie's fault. I blame Bridie. When she was talking about males versus females in sports broadcasting, we are honestly up against hectic amounts of male podcasts. So like, ladies, I know you're listening. Come, like, subscribe, rate, review. That helps us get up the charts and then we can beat all the male podcasts.
Oh, she's not competitive at all.
Always hyper competitive.
Always an Olympian. But it is true. This is a very male-dominated space. We love that you all are out there talking to your friends about us and sharing us around. Continue to do that. And if you're a male who listens, you are very welcome. Thanks for
You're one of the good ones.
Thanks for backing women talking about sport. And thank you for being part of this as well.
We will be back in your ears next week.
Thank you for having us. Bye.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Goodbye.
Oh my goodness. Leave now.
Okay, bye now.
Bye. This episode of Sportish is sponsored by the Active Industry First Start Traineeship program funded by the Queensland Government.